All right, we have recently talked about using factoring and using the quadratic formula to find solutions to a problem. Right now, we want to kind of go to the side and not actually find the solutions, but just ask ourselves, what is the nature of the roots? Now, roots are the same thing as solutions. We call them the solutions, the roots, the zeros. They are what solves for x. What are the answers that will work in this problem? And so, if you recall, we were using the quadratic formula. Well, the nature of the roots is we're not asking for the actual solutions. We're asking for what kind of answers do I expect to have? Do I expect to have imaginary numbers? Do I expect to have real numbers? How do you get imaginary numbers? You get imaginary numbers from a square root of a negative. So the only square root in the quadratic formula is right here. So that's what we're going to focus on. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. That's what we're going to focus on today. When you're looking for the discriminant, all you're doing is finding out what is b squared minus 4ac. Now, if that happens to give me a negative number, then I know I'm going to have, let's just say 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 10 over 2. Well, that square root of a negative means I'm going to have imaginary answers. So what I'm looking for is if the discriminant turns out to be less than 0, that's the same thing as negative, then that means I'm going to have, and I'll use, this looks like blue, but it comes out as purple. That means I'm going to have 2 imaginary answers. Plus and minus is my 2, and the square root of a negative is imaginary. But what happens if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0? 13. Well, I'm going to have, let's say, 5 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. There's nothing wrong with the square root of 13. That's what I was hoping for. It's a real number. And so I'll put on here, in other words, if it's positive, that means I'm going to have 2 real answers. All right? There's something missing here, though. There is one value that is neither positive nor negative, and that would be what happens when b squared minus 4ac actually is 0. Well, let's see what happens. We'll do this off to the side for a second. What if I had 8 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 3? Well, what's the square root of 0? 0. 8 plus or minus 0 over 3. Well, what's 8 plus 0? That would give me 8. And 8 minus 0 is still 8. I don't have 2 answers. I have 1 that I wrote twice. That doesn't count. It doesn't count as 2 answers. It counts as 1. I have 1 answer. So when this value under the square root is 0, you're really only getting 1 answer. So instead of writing 2 real, it's not negative, so it would not be imaginary, it's only 1 real. So what is it that I want you to do? And I didn't bring any extra of these, so I'll just write on the board. All right, let's try one. 2x squared plus 3x plus 5 equals 0, or equals y, or whatever. That's not the important part. The important part is the question is going to ask, what is the discriminant? Okay? So first part is, what is the discriminant? Well, that means I want b squared minus 4ac. Well, let's figure this out. What is a? Well, a is always the number in front of the x squared. So a is 2. Not 2x squared, just 2. What is b? b is 3. What is c? c is 5. All right, So now let's plug this in. I don't need to plug it into the entire quadratic formula. I just want that one part under the radical. So b, 3 squared, minus 4 times a times c. That would be 9 minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40. 9 minus 40 is a negative 31. B squared minus 4ac turns out to be a negative 31. That's the first part of my question. The second part is, what is the nature of the roots? Well, the nature just means tell me about them. What do you know about them? I'm going to be taking the square root of a negative, which means I will have 2 imaginary. Because negative 31 is less than 0. And that's my answer. All right. Let's try one more. What if, I'll use a different color. What if I had x squared minus 6x plus 9? All right, what is a? A is 1, that's the number in front. B is negative 6, and C is 9. All right, let's plug it in. I don't need the whole quadratic formula, just the b squared. Be very careful when you're squaring a negative that you have parentheses. Minus 4 times a times c. All right, what is negative 6 squared? Positive 36. 4 times 1 is 4, times 9 is 36. My discriminant is 0. What is the nature of the roots? All right, when I have b squared minus 4ac equal to 0, that means I'm looking at one real solution. I did not ask for what that solution is. I just want to know the discriminant and the nature of the roots. All right? Okay.